Hi everyone, this is Sandra from Mobius Girl Design. This is the first in a series of tutorial videos for the Marguerite Blanket Crochet Along. In this first video, I'm going to talk a little bit about Tapestry Crochet, some do's and don'ts, and some tips to keep in mind along the way. So we're going to go ahead and start almost at the end of round one. I'm going to start here to show you how to switch colors. Here I've worked 11 double crochets into the ring, and I've tightened it up a little bit already just for the video here. I'm going to go ahead and make my last double crochet. I'm going to yarn over just like usual, insert my hook into the loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I now have 1, 2, 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over again and pull through 2. Just like a regular double crochet. And now if I were to yarn over and pull through again, that would complete the stitch. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop color A, I'm going to pick up my color B, I'm going to finish the stitch with this. So I'm going to yarn over the hook, just make a little loop and keep some tension on it. I'm going to go ahead and pull that through, and that's going to complete that last double crochet. Now it looks a little funny because these loops got pulled up from the stitch a little bit. So I'm going to take my color A and just give it a little bit of a tug. It's going to tighten it up a little bit. I'm also going to give a little bit of a tug on my color B, and that's going to tighten up that side. So now I've finished all of round one except for the join. For the join, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, I'm going to just sort things out here. So I'm going to keep my working yarn over here. I'm going to bring my tails over here so they're kind of more out of the way. She'll get them untangled so they're totally out of the way. Now to do my slip stitch to join the round, I'm going to do that in color B. All of the rounds will be joined actually with color B. What I want to do is insert my hook under the top 2 loops of my first double crochet, not the chain 2, the first double crochet. And now I'm going to look to the back here. I need to bring my color A up to the top so that I catch it in the slip stitch. So I'm going to bring it over the hook. Oops. Try that again. Bring it over the hook. And then I'm going to go ahead and complete the slip stitch. So I'm going to pull through with color B and finish it off. So you can see here that color A is on top, and it will be then caught in the next stitch as I continue my round. And that's important because if I don't bring color A up here to the top of the round at the beginning, I'm going to end up with some pretty funny looking floats on the back of my work, and I don't want that to happen. So now I'm just going to continue on in the pattern. I'm going to start with my chain 2 and make my first double crochet. So again, I'm going to make the stitch just like normal, but I'm going to stop when I have 2 loops left on the hook. That's the second to last step of the double crochet. I'm going to drop my color B, pick up my color A, and finish the stitch with that. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And now I've finished the stitch. Again, I'm going to give just a little bit of a tug on color B to keep things not loose. I'm going to tug my tail here again. Once you weave this tail in, this little bump will sort of disappear. It'll get woven into the work, so don't worry about that. So now I'm ready for my next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now I have my 3 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. Now I have my 2 loops left on the hook, my final 2 loops. So again, I'm going to drop color A, I'm going to pick up color B, yarn over, and finish the stitch. So there are my first 2 stitches of the round. Now I'm going to continue working in this way. For round 2, you switch on every other stitch, so there's a lot of chance to practice your tapestry crochet skills here. I'm going to keep going in the pattern. working my stitches and switching back and forth between colors A and B. Now as I'm going, you might notice that I'm trying to keep one color to the front and one color to the back. So right here I have color A more toward the front, color B more toward the back. And the reason I do that is to make sure that my yarns don't get tangled, or my colors don't get tangled. If I don't do that, if I don't keep them each in their own position, I'm likely to end up with a tangled mess before long. Now, as I'm working, I like to try to keep tension on both yarns at the same time. It takes a little bit of dexterity, but it's not too tricky. And the way that I do that is that I hold the color that I'm working with between my pointer finger and my middle finger. And I kind of hold the one that I'm not working with between, or the carry yarn between my ring finger and my pinky. I'll keep going along. You'll notice that actually I drop both yarns in between stitches, and the reason I do that is to sort of reposition, so that now I have color A in the position that color B was for the last stitch, and color B where color A was. Trying my best not to get tangled up here. Now the other thing that you'll notice as I'm working along is that, like I said in the pattern, one of the yarns is carried along the top of the work. Or actually you can carry it just a little bit behind the last round, and that will help you to avoid being able to see the carry yarn in the finished piece. So keep working in the pattern, again switching back and forth. You'll notice too that when I switch colors, like I said before, I try to give a little tug to make sure that everything is carried along smoothly. I don't want to pull too hard, otherwise I'll end up with some bumps in my work. But I pull just hard enough to bring these stitches, the previous stitch and the stitch that I'm working on, kind of close together. So I'm going to finish up this round, and then I'm going to come back and talk with you about just a few more tips. So I will be right back. Okay, here we are, almost at the end of round 2. I just have 2 more stitches to work, one in color B and one in color A. So I'm going to finish those stitches just so you can get one more glimpse of what it looks like to switch colors. So again, I work my stitch to the second to last step, which is where I have 2 loops left on the hook. Drop one color, pick up the next, yarn over and pull through. And now here I am on my last stitch for round 2. And again, you can see that I'm always going to switch to color B right at the end of the round, right before I join. So I'm always joining color B to color B. So again, I'm going to insert my hook under both loops of my first double crochet of the round. I'm going to pick up my yarn A, bring it over the top of the hook, and finish my slip stitch. And continue on. So round 3 starts with, again, a chain 2. And now I have 2 double crochets in this first stitch. And switch colors, one in the next. So a couple of things I wanted to show you here. You might notice that in this first round, because I'm starting with a chain 2, not counting it as a stitch, this petal, or this section worked in my contrast color, is going to look just a little bit wider. It gets harder to see when the full motif is done. There's not as much of a discrepancy. The reason I do it this way is for 2 reasons. I don't like the gap that can sometimes form if I were to chain 3 for my first double crochet. And I also don't like working into the tops of chains. It's just a personal preference. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. Again, this is, you're in control here. You get to do what works for you. But that's not the way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to unravel this here just for a moment to show you what happens if I forget to catch color A over the top of the hook before I do the slip stitch. So if I were to join my round and continue working, you'll notice that if I try to pull up color A now and work over it just like I do with Tapestry Crochet, I'm going to get this little bit of a float there. I don't know if you can see it in the video. I think it's kind of unsightly. It's probably not the end of the world, but to me it just makes a neater final piece if I don't have that little float on the back. So again, when I do my slip stitch, insert my hook under both loops, bring my yarn A over the top, and finish the slip stitch. So now as I keep going in the pattern, it gets a little bit easier actually because I have fewer or less frequent yarn changes, I guess, or more stitches between when I have to change colors. So to me that makes it a little easier. Not so much worrying about tangling, not so much switching back and forth, and I can work a little bit more quickly then. So this is pretty much how the rest of, just keep my yarn straight. This is pretty much how the rest of the full motif goes. I'm going to be working my petals in color B, and my contrast color is color A, the one that kind of forms the background for the motif. And beyond this point, really the only other tricky bit is working some double crochet 2 together. And hopefully that's a skill that you have. If not, there are lots of handy videos out there. I'm not going to do a video of that one right now, just for the sake of time. The only other thing I wanted to show you here was the process of pulling on the carry yarn a little bit as I'm getting more stitches in between. So like I said, after I've worked my stitches and I'm ready to switch colors, before I do that, I give just a little bit of a tug on the carry yarn. And really all I want to do is make sure that, I'll drop my hook here so I can show it to you. So this is where the yarn is being carried. That white parchment color right there. And to make sure that that doesn't stick out too much, what I want to do is just give it a little bit of a tug, not too tight, otherwise I start to pull my second to last stitch down too much. I don't want to do that, but just tight enough so that these stitches kind of bump right up against each other, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and switch colors and continue on. That's all I have right now for tips on how to do tapestry crochet. Like anything, you'll find that the more you do it, the easier it gets, and honestly, the more fun it gets because you start to know what you're doing. Really, the biggest problems that come up when it comes to tapestry crochet are getting your yarns tangled, which is solved by, again, keeping one yarn to the front, one yarn to the back. Another issue is having your tension be off, again, so that there are either gaps or kind of divots from when you're pulling your carry yarn. And those are sort of the main ones. If you can see again here that I have my carry yarn just a little bit to the back so that it's not as visible from the front of the motif. So that's it for the full motif. I'm going to come back in another video to show you, once you've made 2 full motifs, how to join them together. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.